Welcome to Inside the Indians, your source for insider information on the Tribe. Stay with us as we bring you the latest about the players, managers, and people behind the scenes at Victory Field. Now here's your host, the longtime broadcast voice of the Indians, Howard Kellman.
Hi everybody, I'm Howard Kellman and welcome to Inside the Indians. On today's show, we'll talk to skipper Brian Esposito, first baseman Will Craig, and outfielder Brian Reynolds. We'll be back with Espo on the home of the Indians, WHMB, TV 40. Brian Esposito, the manager of the Indianapolis Indians, our first guest on Inside the Indians. And Espo, one of the rule changes this year, when you bring in a relief pitcher, he must face 3 batters unless an inning comes to an end. Have you found that to be a major impact?
No, we have not ran into any problems where either we saw a guy come in to face, whether it be a matchup or a guy coming in where the pitch count or, his usage has really gotten in the way. There's ways that we could maneuver around some things like that. If there's a base open, intentionally walking a guy will count towards that batter face as long as that batter reaches first base. So we haven't had any issues with it yet. There are ways to be a little more strategic with it, but so far so good.
Now, last year, I'll give you credit for this. I talked to you in spring training, and I was disappointed about the rule change they were putting in about starting extra innings with a runner at second. And you said to me in spring training last year, it may add an element of strategy. And I found that to be the case. Not only did it shorten games, so you didn't have these 15 and 16 inning games, which I think was the original intent, but there was an element of strategy involved, which was really interesting.
Yeah, we tried many things in the early going, whether, home or being on the road came into play. There was the element of trying to bunt guys over and then defend a bunt. If a team bunted them over, do you set up a double play in the middle of the field after they give up and out? So a lot of it goes on who you have on the mound, who do you have left in your bullpen, who's available off the bench. One of the snafus last year was, as a National League club, that 9-hole or the 8-hole, wherever you have your pitcher hitting, counted towards the runner. If that guy needed to be on the bases, you were in a little bit of a hole of how you maneuvered your pen. I know they made an adjustment to that rule this year, so if that pitcher spot does present itself on the bases, you're able to go to the guy behind him to run. So they made an adjustment on that one. That came into play just one time for us last year where I decided to let a pitcher hit with nobody, with that runner on and and 2 outs, as opposed to having to remove that pitcher from the game and then go back into my bullpen. So a lot of strategy, a lot of things in terms of development. You got to be able to bunt, you got to be able to move runners. So it forces us to be better at what it is that we want to get done on a regular basis anyway.
Most of our games are against American League teams, which means there's a designated hitter. But when we play a Louisville or a Lehigh Valley, there are some teams that are National League, no DH. How do you feel managing in games with a designated hitter as opposed to when the pitcher bats?
Well, obviously you have to look a little bit further down the road when you're in a National League game. You got to look at some of your bullpen options. You got to look at whether it's an opportunity to, do you want to go into your pen or do you want to play for multiple runs that inning? It's one of those things where you're just looking down the road and the game is going to continue to tell you things as we go. The same way we talk to players about, see what's in front of you and trust your eyes. That's the same thing that we got to do from the bench is see how the pace of the game is going, where we are, what do we have coming in, and who's really available. So I enjoy it. I look about 2 or 3 innings down the road, so it keeps me sharp on the bench. So I personally enjoy the National League rules of having that pitcher hitting in there and being able to make some moves from the bench.
There's so much more strategy involved in a National League game with the pitcher hitting. And another thing, a pitcher may get a break when he faces an opposing pitcher. There's nothing wrong with having a break out there, an easy out.
Well, the thing is that there are no more easy outs anyway. The way that we have trained our hitters to be offensive, a force out there, whether it is be able to handle the bat and put a ball in play, pressure the defense. Historically, they always think a pitcher's going to bunt. They'll spread the defense thin and they'll push guys in there to be able to handle a bunt. Well, if you're able to handle the bat or you're able to slash or hit and run, the element of some more strategy comes out into play. So we want our guys to own their job. You know, pitchers need to be able to own the bat and be able to go into the batter's box and handle it and fight for their own cause. You know, that's how you stay in a game. That might keep you in a game a little bit longer. That's how you might push yourself into getting a quality start as opposed to coming out after 5 innings. You know, it's the selfless game of baseball where if you handle your own stuff. From a selfless perspective, selfishly, you're going to start piling up some accolades, and as you know, that's how you get paid at the major league level.
In the National League, your number 8 hitter is a key man in that lineup, where in the American League it's much different. It's hitter after hitter.
Yeah, it is a very tough spot to hit in the order. I know from experience, I've been in that 8 hole. I probably should not have been in the 8 hole, but you are going to be pitched much differently than the majority of that lineup, especially when you start earlier in the game and there's runners on. You might not see the at-bat. You might get walked. You might get pitched around a little bit where if you're not a hitter that has good plate discipline and some patience, you wind up swinging at some pitches outside the zone. In fact, it's also encouraged to be able to be a little bit of a free swinger to hit a ball that might be slightly off the plate and drive it to the big part of the field because you know that, with the pitcher coming up behind you, that guy might not be in the best situation to drive in a run, so you've got to take hands into your own, matter into your own hands and go from there.
What you just mentioned about some hitters do this, RBI guys. With that runner, remember Ernie Banks going back a while, but I remember him saying, with that runner at second, that RBI is mine, so he'll swing it. He don't want to chase a pitch, obviously, but they'll extend the strike zone to knock it a run.
Yeah, so, if you look at the history of this game, a lot of the mistakes are either just slightly off the plate or slightly in off the plate. And you're hunting those RBIs, you will expand the zone, especially on some fastballs. Like you said, you don't want to chase balls out of the zone, either underneath the zone or pitches that you essentially wouldn't be able to drive, but there have been plenty of fastballs that you're able to drive that are either slightly off the edge or slightly elevated as well. So we want our guys to go up there and hunt that RBI out.
Going back to the batting order and 2 outs, nobody on, number 8 hitter comes up in the lineup, pitcher up next. If he can get on base, he helps your team out so much.
Of course, turns that lineup over. Anytime you can turn that lineup over and have your leadoff guy starting off the next inning, you're in a much greater spot than you are having a pitcher get out there for obvious reasons. The at-bat might not go as well as you want. And once you have that guy on base, do you really want him, tearing up the base paths? We want our guys, our expectation is our pitchers are able to run the bases and touch home plate and score some runs. The reality is sending guys back out to the mound after they have an extended look on the bases, it could affect their pitching on the mound. So
I like the fact that when you and I have talked on a daily basis, you made the point last year to me, you want guys to run the bases with intelligence. You just don't want them to be aggressive.
Right. Intelligence is on the forefront of what we do. We want an aggressive mindset, but there has to be a level of intelligence that's going to allow me and my aggressiveness to play out. Scoreboard comes into play big time. Where we are in the game, what inning we are we home or on the road? Being able to identify weak links on the field, who's got a good arm, who doesn't, where are they positioned? There's a lot of things that go into this stuff that allow my reads to be aggressive, but I want to be intelligent as well. Personally, I think intelligence should be on the forefront before the aggressiveness takes place. If I know where I'm going to be, that allows me to open up the gates to aggressiveness. If I'm just running in the blind, it's not an aggressive base running, it's lucky base running at that point.
I think that's beautifully said. Thank you so much, Espo.
My pleasure.
It's Brian Esposito on the home of the Indians, WHMD TV Sports. First baseman Will Craig, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Will, you've gotten off to a terrific start. Tell us your thoughts on the adjustment in coming and playing ball at the AAA level.
Yeah, for me it was just a big emphasis to get the season started well. Last year didn't start as well as I wanted to, so that was a big emphasis for me. It was just trying to get as many good at-bats early on as possible, whether it result in hits or not. That'd be okay, just trying to get as good at-bats as possible.
Well, talking about that, a number of them have resulted in home runs, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's kind of put a good swing on the ball and it's kind of went out. So I've been really fortunate. I've had some guys on base sometimes, so it's been a pretty good outcome.
Have you noticed a difference in the pitching at the AAA level as opposed to AA?
Yeah, a little bit. You definitely know when there's guys that have, big league time in Double A as well as in Triple A. They pitch a little differently, and they know what they're doing. I'm not saying the other guys don't, but you can just tell there's a little bit of a difference between that. So that's when you need to really step up your game, because you know that when you get to the next level for us, it's when it's every at-bat it's like that. So.
You may be facing in AAA a 29-year-old, a 30, 31-year-old pitcher, where in AA you're facing possibly someone who's 21 or 22 or 20. What's the difference usually in the approach of those two guys, a veteran opposed to a youngster?
Yeah, usually the younger guys tend to rely more on their best stuff, which as an older guy will typically use all of his pitches and use them really well. So he's not going to lean heavy one way or the other. So he'll have his specific pitches that he wants and specific counts and whatnot. But for the most part, the younger guys will stick to one, maybe two pitches, while the other guys will throw 3, 4, maybe even 5 pitches.
I think home runs are wonderful, but knocking in runs is a terrific thing and means so much to a ball club. And here you are last year, you led not only Altoona, you led the entire Eastern League in runs batted in, which had to mean a great deal to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, if I'm driving runs, our team's probably doing really well. So I can drive in as many runs as possible, help my team get the win. That's all I care about.
Tell us a little bit about your approach to hitting and your philosophy.
Yeah, for me, it's just trying to get a good pitch to swing at and barrel as much as possible. So I'm not trying to swing as hard as I can, but I'm not trying to place the ball. I'm trying to just take a really good swing, trying to drive the ball, and trying to hit the ball in the gaps or over the fence. Obviously, is my two goals. Trying to get to second base or all the way around. So, but as long as I'm driving runs, doesn't matter how.
When I was a kid, and that's going back a while, I read Ted Williams' book, The Science of Hitting. And the first thing he said, the number one thing is get a good pitch to hit. And that's exactly what you said, first of all.
Yep. When you get the good pitch, everything take care of itself. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because what happens to guys, no matter how good you are, you have a challenge and a rough period. It happens to everybody. Most guys, when they go through a challenging time, they tend to chase pitches and try a little too hard.
Yeah, especially knowing from experience, like you said, everyone goes through it. When I do struggle, I try to expand a little bit more, try to put everything in play, just trying to find that knock. Whether it's a broken bat over the second baseman's head or if it's an infield single, just somehow try to get a knock. Instead, you maybe quiet down a little bit, refine a little bit more, and try to be more selective. So.
Tell us about academics and playing ball at Wake Forest.
Yeah, being at Wake was very humbling for me as well. Baseball and academic-wise, coming from high school, I was always, pretty smart. I like to think, anyways. But really learning how to balance academics and athletics was something I needed to learn. I learned quick because first couple weeks I was a little bit behind in school, and they were like, "Hey, you need to pick it up." So since then, it hit me hard. That I was like, "All right, I need to spend more time, maybe more time, in the study hall than in batting cages." Which I did, and then got back on track and all good to go the rest of my career. But once I found that happy medium between both, I was all square.
Well, baseball is a game of adjustments, and you found out that going to college was an adjustment too.
Being in high school, you kind of just go to class, do your thing, don't really study that much because you feel like you have everything planned out. But once I got to college, I realized it wasn't that easy. I found out pretty quick it wasn't that easy. I was going to class and everything I needed to do, but I wasn't doing anything extra on the side. I was just trying to go off how my brain worked, and it worked a little slower. Going from you practice 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes you have early weights. Going through all that process was definitely a learning curve.
I think what's really special is here you are, you're coming through the system now in AAA. The same with shortstop Cole Tucker, and the same with third baseman Brian Hayes. How neat it is that you guys have come through the system together.
Yeah, it's very awesome. My first year I was drafted. A few of those guys are still playing. Some of them are in AA. I think most of them are in AA. But yeah, since I started my first full season in High A with Cole and Brian, it's just been very awesome every year to have them with me. Going for my first full season, I had to learn a lot, how to take care of myself, how to, adjust to the game. Cole and Key are both there for me. Even though I'm the older guy of the three, I had to learn from them, and they learned from me as well. But just having them for 3 straight years now, it's been an awesome experience.
Right, they both signed out of high school while you signed after your junior year of college.
Yep.
And there's a difference.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, I learned how to balance academics and athletics, and they learned how to balance all the baseball, pro ball. So going from practicing, in the GCL 8, 9 o'clock in the morning to, throughout the rest of the day. So I had to learn a little bit how to just do baseball and just how to take care of myself in that way, in that aspect, whether it be, getting some stretching in, extra cage, maybe less cage, and just going from there. So it's been a really cool experience.
How do you find playing first base? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I've really learned to love it. Early on, I wasn't too fond of it. I kind of still wanted to play third, but then when I saw Brian play over there, I go, oh, now it makes sense why I'm going to first base. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. I really worked my tail off the last couple of years at it. I want to be the guy that they trust to throw the ball over the first base. That I'm going to pick the ball, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to do whatever is possible to get that out, to save them and save myself and save our team. From our pitcher throwing extra pitches to them getting an error, us saving a run or two. So that's my goal, is to try and do that as much as possible. Because if it's not working in the box, I want to try to do it in the field. So.
Well, that's beautifully said. Now, you mentioned working hard. What would you do? Is it taking ground balls, or please explain the work that goes into it?
For me, it's just making sure that my footwork, either whether it's feeding the ball at first base, turn double play, or being set up in the right spot at the right time. We have, we as the Pirates, we shift a lot. But for me, it's also doing personal shifting in the game, whether it be moving my left, moving my right, maybe in, maybe back. So just kind of trying to read the swings, read the player, know who they are, know our pitcher, know who's playing second base with me, whether it be Kramer or Jake Elmore. So just knowing that and just being aware.
Will, thank you so much. Congratulations on a terrific start.
Thank you.
That's Will Craig on the home of the Indians, WHMB TV Sports. The Indianapolis Indians' fine young outfielder, Brian Reynolds, our next guest on Inside the Indians. Brian, you came over in the trade with the Giants a year ago, the Andrew McCutchen trade. Tell us how things have gone and how you feel being in the Pirates organization.
It was obviously surprising when it happened. Wasn't expecting it. Just kind of hanging out with my dog outside. But, I'm glad to be here. A lot of good guys, a lot of good personalities around. I've enjoyed it pretty well.
You grew up in Tennessee and in a Vanderbilt guy. You played some really good baseball at the college level.
Yeah, I grew up about 25 minutes away from Vanderbilt, so I was fortunate to be able to go there. My parents could come watch me play whenever. And you said it, Vanderbilt is in the SEC, the best conference in baseball, best team in the conference. So, it was pretty surreal to be able to play there.
It's also a good academic institution.
Yeah, top in the country in that too, so you get the mix of pushing yourself in the classroom and pushing yourself on the field.
Tell us a little bit about your approach and your philosophy of hitting.
I try to keep it as simple as I can when I'm going well. When things go poorly, I start to overthink it, which is not what I want to do. I just want to get in there and try to hit the ball hard somewhere, not overthink it.
I like the fact, watching you from both sides of the plate, that you try to hit the ball where it's pitched and you don't try to do too much up there.
Yeah, I mean, if the ball's outside, I'm just going to try to, take it the other way. If it's inside, I'll try to pull my hands in there and get the barrel on it. But, I'm not going to go up there trying to, drive the ball over the fence. If my swing gets me there, it gets me there. If not, it'll, maybe float over the infield somewhere.
Would you agree it's a lot easier to be more consistent with that kind of approach as opposed to trying to pull everything?
For me personally, it is, because it keeps me centered. If I try to pull everything, I get in a little bit of trouble with off-speed pitches or the pitch away. It gives me difficulty when I get, occupied with trying to yank everything.
You're off to a great start. Tell us your feelings on this Indianapolis Indians team.
It's a good team we got. We got a lot of good players. Our infield's stacked. Our outfield's really good. Our pitching staff is loaded. So, everybody can hit, everybody can throw, everybody can field. Not much more you can ask for.
Have you noticed a major change in philosophy being in the Pirates organization as opposed to being in the Giants?
Nothing too over the top. I mean, I was in the lower levels of the Giants organization. I wasn't high A, I wasn't double A or triple A, but, it's still baseball. Still try to do the same thing.
Tell us the story of you becoming a switch hitter.
My dad we'd go hit at the, local cages 5-6 times a week, and, when I was probably about 12, he just started having me flip around at the end of our, time in the cage, hit a few lefty, and then I guess it just snowballed. And then my junior year of high school, I started actually doing it in games, and then I've been doing it since then.
So it looks as if you're glad you did it.
Yeah, sometimes. It's pretty hard because it's two swings. So you might be feeling good right-handed, and then you have to go up there lefty, which you might not be feeling good, or vice versa. But it's got its trade-offs. You don't have to hit the, hard slider going away from you as much, but then you have to hit the changeup more. So, it has its days.
Yeah, well, you have to work a little harder in spring training too, I would think.
Yeah, because you have to get two swings down instead of one. But yeah, I'm thankful for it. I think it helps me. Well,
Brian, I thank you very much, and I congratulate you on the way you've played and wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, appreciate it.
That's Tribe outfielder Brian Reynolds, and this is the home of the Indians, WHMP TV Sports. Thanks to our guests, Brian Esposito, Will Craig, and Brian Reynolds. See you next week on Inside the Indians.